So, I'd like to just probably take a counter position, because you gotta make sure that you don't get off out of the frying pan into the fire. So we need to look at, well, who else is in the community? Because we're not gonna reach out to Florida and bring some company in here. We need to look and see what the other companies that might be doing business in San Antonio can provide us. And maybe I'm gonna take a little bit of counter position, but we only had one candidate to come to this community as a community manager. Nobody else would apply for the position. We're having the same problem with the livestock coordinator. We can't find a livestock coordinator to come to this community. CCMC is among the best paying, best benefit community manager in the industry. There's a reason why people don't want to come here. And it may be the board, it may be Facebook, it may be, I don't know what it is. But right now, Hill Country Retreat is not a favorite place to go for a lot of reasons. So we've got a lot of work to do to change the attitude of the community. Maybe it's the board, maybe it's open business, maybe it's more communication with the community, I don't know. But we just signed a 3-year contract with CCMC. So we do not want to be in a position of getting a reputation of kicking people out of here because we don't like how they're doing it. So we got 2 years to figure it out. And what we want is we want the best people signing up for the jobs that they have.
Yeah, not a lot to add to that. You know, for specific incidents you have, you know, again, we don't know exactly what their processes are. When you go to complain to the front desk, well, the front desk should have procedures on what to do. We should know what those procedures are supposed to be. If you complain to the community manager, well, those complaints to the community manager, any communication to the community manager should also be relayed to the board. And the board and the community manager, in a good world, you know, would be simpatico. They would know what each other was doing, and they would work in concert, not against each other. And I can't tell you right now what the board knows and what the board doesn't know because we're not getting communication. So.
Yeah, so good question, Clyde, but I know about 5 years ago, 6 years ago when we first moved in, I could go down and complain about something at the front desk, and they'd send the compliance manager out to get the door-to-door salesman that's not supposed to be in the property. So I don't know what's changed in the last couple of years that they've just decided that's not part of their responsibility. But getting back on what Jim was saying too, you know, do we look at CCMC and look at them hard? The contract just got signed, and have a hard conversation with them. There's certain things and certain deadlines that they're supposed to be meeting and certain functions they're supposed to be performing, and if they're not, you kind of talk to them about it. And we used to have action plans for problem employees when I was working.
Sure.
Do you have that with them and say, we need you to be accountable on X, Y, and Z and go from there? So I'm the agree of, I don't want to necessarily throw them right out right away. Give them a chance to improve, and if they can't improve, then you go on to the next step from there.
Thank you for the question. This is a change recently because we're frustrated with the same situation, solicitors coming door to door. And we were told to just call down to the front desk and they'll send somebody out, or get his or her company's name and they'll call the company. So that's an option too that used to be in place. But you know, CCMC as an entity, there's no question but the president of the board is the CEO of the organization. She is responsible for the interface with CCMC. That's really the only person who can tell CCMC what to do. Other board members can't do that. So until I know what kind of direction has been provided, or what kind of influence has been provided by the president, I can't really make a decision on a lot of CCMC's issues. However, I do know, even though we have a 3-year contract, there's a 6-month out in it. We're not tied for 3 years. There's a 6-month termination clause. And, you know, does it get messy? Sure, it gets messy. That's the way life is with contracts. The second issue, or the overall reaching issue for me as a former CEO, to have somebody in your house that controls all of your work is just not the way to do business. If you take them out, let's just say they're doing the job, we're just going to remove them as a contract source. You will gain at least 20% to your bottom line when you do that. Minimum 20%. That's been proven time and time again. So I'm not a big fan of having hired guns in the organization because their loyalty doesn't go to you, it goes to their company. Then you have to interface with their company to get something done. And I'll give you a name. Her name is Sarah Hoff. She is the Senior Vice President of Operations for CCMC. Many of us, well, okay, some of us don't like her, some of us do. I think she tends to be responsive if you present the issue to her correctly and in the right manner, respectfully, etc. So if you want her number, I'd be glad to provide it to you. She has been receptive to phone calls, and she has changed.
Thank you, Dennis.
In answer to when you come to the front desk, it depends what time you come, because from 9 to 4, it's a regular CCMC employee, and I guess they have authority to do things, I'm not sure. But if you go after 4 and 5, those are residents, people that don't know everything about what can be done and can't be done. So if you go that time and they tell you it's not my job, they may be true. It may not be in their job description of what to do. They'll do certain things, but not everything. And I know of some one in another association. His grass was really tall, so the association sent a company over there to mow the grass, and then they send him the bill. And I thought I read it somewhere where they said that they would do that. If you don't cut it in a certain amount of time, we're going to send a company out there to cut it for you, and then you get a bill from them. But depending, like I said, it depends when you come down to the board, because they're not, in the evening, they're residents, and they've only been trained to do certain things, not everything. They don't have a say on certain things.
In my response to your issue about a complaint, hopefully with a new board that's open to visiting with residents, if that had happened and I was on the board, I would like to know about it. If I'm on the board, you ought to feel that you can go to a board member and tell them about your problem. Now, if that came up, I'm not the president of the board, but I know the president, so I could go to him and say, we have a problem here, we're not getting communication. But I think, hopefully with a new board that's open to the residents, to listen to people, and I don't have a problem with that. Maybe that could have been a burden. Because as a manager of a store or a company, if you get a complaint, if you don't take care of it, it spreads. But if you don't know about it, you can't fix it. So just going to them, if you're not getting your answer from CCMC, hopefully the new board, if you have any problem, and if any of us that are on the board are open to advice or questions that you're having a problem with, that hopefully we can solve, the chairman of the board can do that.
Thank you, Jay. All right, we have a question right here. Hi, my name is Bob Pye. I live in the Cove. We're one of 59 Del Webb communities in 20 states. The oldest one has been around for 65 years. For the people that are running, would you be willing to call them, email them, text them, find out what they do? For the BRSs, the CNRs, the RFPs, the business plans, the processes, procedures. What do they do for communication, issues, and problems? And I don't know if CCMC or Del Webb has, the information about it, but which one of those communities has the best community engagement, whether it's on a survey or whether it's reinvent the wheel if it's already been invented somewhere else. Make it spin here.
Anyone want to address that? Jack?
Another great idea. There is a organization, it's called the CAI, which is an association of community managers. And they have a great website, and one of their prime thing is, they've got a message board, kind of like this. People have questions about how do you handle that, and they, respond. So there's a lot of knowledge out there that are shared between members of that association. And I think it's a tremendous idea is going out and asking, finding which communities do a better job at what we're doing. So.
Yeah, there are other management companies out there. I know that because when we started talking about contract, one of the board members went through the contract and he started redlining the things that he thinks were not correct, and man, that contract had more red lines than whatever red lines you can make. Probably red line or markers, But so I started researching other companies around here. And I think I gave Gary and Bruce some paperwork of a company that's here that sounded good to me. And I brought it to them, to the board, and I said, why don't we call this company and see what they think, what they do. Let them come in and see what they can do for us. Ask them to give us a contract, see what it looks like. No, we can't do that. We're not going to do that. So, we do the work, but unless the board wants to listen, and like this new board is going to do, listen, we might have start researching, like you say, other companies around to see what they got. And there was one that said, CCMC just left this association over there. This neighborhood off of Culebra, further up. And that's how we got Will. Because Will needed a job and he was working there, but he did not, after the CCMC left, well, they sent him to us to come and fill the slot that, I forgot his name. George, yeah, George had, but we need to research some other stuff. Just read it, just research it, see what's out there.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, some of these other jail webs also use CCMC, and, like they were talking about, going up and.
Like Sweetgrass.
They used to do something here, and now they don't. You could call them and say, hey, does your standards person do this? Oh, yeah. Well, then you just tell this standards person, they'll do your job.
So your original question was, I believe, would I do that as a
Yeah, would you be willing to,
the answer is
these other jail webs?
the answer is absolutely yes, and not only yes, but we have. There are several of us who have gone a deep dive into that process. Even brought back some of their newsletters, which are really nice because they have advertisements in it that pay for itself and produce revenue. Actually, what a concept! And when you start looking at the numbers of employees, you have to be really careful because we have a lot of contract services here. Some of the well-run, in my opinion, HOAs that are web communities, if you will, don't have a lot of those contracts. They have in-house people doing it. So if you look at the actual numbers of employees, you have to look at how many contract services are involved also. My opinion, the best run is out in Las Vegas and Henderson, I think it is, because they have an in-house COO, Chief Operating Officer, that reports to the board, president. What a concept. The CEO has a COO reporting to him or her. Wow, amazing. So that's the way it should work, in my humble opinion. I've been involved in HOAs for years and years and years, through home ownership, and I have not yet seen one management company that does things differently than the others. They'll present to you that they do, but it's really up to the board to deal with these issues. And until we have a board and the president of the board is really willing to get down, spend the time and energy to be the CEO, it's not going to work no matter who you have back there. That's just the way life is. I mean, he or she's going to have that responsibility. Nobody else has it, and they need to function with it. So.
I wouldn't limit it to Del Web's. First of all, Del Web is a marketing name. Doesn't mean anything. But what's important is we should be talking to other folks in the state of Texas, because we all have to operate under Texas law. And Henderson's nice, you can look at it for organization. But the laws in the state of Texas govern how we do business. So we need to be talking to the folks. We need to be talking to folks in San Antonio about who's doing the work. You know, one of the biggest problems we had when we took over buildings and grounds and common area, we didn't have any vendors. So we had to go find vendors. And the vendors we have, we found through CAI. But it's hard to get vendors to work for us because we only do jobs in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. It's not profitable for them to do it for $3,000 to $5,000. If it costs them $5,000 to put your proposal together. So there's a group of companies that do business with HOAs because they're accustomed to how HOAs do business. We take a long time, we change our mind, we don't do big jobs. So we're not going to get big companies, we're going to get little companies. And we have to accommodate those. But I like talking to other companies, but I would say state of Texas companies and vendors in San Antonio.
Yeah, I'll agree with that because every state is different. If any of you ever lived in an HOA in Florida, you'll know what laws look like. I mean, everything gets voted on. They vote people into office there in elected office, just as you would any politician to run things. And again, you know, communities are different sizes and they have different issues, so they're going to be run differently. If we had a golf course, we'd be run differently than if we didn't have a golf course. Different sized communities, and that becomes a problem. Even looking nationwide, finding communities of comparable size. A lot of things, if you look at new Del Webb communities they're building now, most are in, you know, like the 12 to 1,400 house range. It's hard for them to find long, big, bright pieces of property. And the other issue is it takes them too long to get it built out and get out of there. Because we all know that we love our community for the people we're in. We don't love it for the builder that we have. And, you know, and that's reflected in everything that was built in here. So, you know, but yes, we do need to look at other communities. We do need to try and learn from other people. No reason reinventing the wheel and everything. But we can go out and see what other people's ideas were and try and tailor them to the way we want to be. Because we're not the same as other communities are either.
Yeah, so Bob, great question. Definitely be able to call other places. I would definitely support that. And in fact, the suggestion of taped interviews came from a resident here that was familiar with what happened at Sweetgrass out in the Houston area. So you had somebody that had a good idea, saw how it was working in another community, and it imported that idea here. So again, we relied on people in the community to bring that up. Another one I would definitely throw out is Frisco Lakes, which is a Del Webb community, obviously in the Dallas area. They just replaced CCMC within the last year and a half to 2 years. Go and ask them and learn from them about why did they do that and why did they go with a different company and the success or failure of that. So for sure, leveraging the expertise of other communities in Texas. Thanks.
Next question.
Dave Gady, Live in the Winds. Would you guys and girl, as board members, be willing to look at our existing committee structure? There's a number of people that feel that some of the committees we have, we don't need or aren't properly run, properly organized, not run necessarily. And that other committees might be needed. The advisory committee is viewed as a blocking committee to keep the residents from getting to and communicating with the committees who have the expertise in a particular area, as well as protect the board or keep people away from the board. The nominating committee is another one that is trying to fill committees without having the committee chairman or the committee itself involved in filling that committee. How do they know what the requirements are, what the expertise is of the members of the committee? Will that person fit in with the committee itself? I was on a committee in a community 10 times the size of this one, and the committees did the interviews. The committees found the people to work on their committee and brought that up to the board and made the recommendations to the board to approve those people on the committee. I've seen other things and some of the communication going around the community about other committees that might be more appropriate. But would you be willing to look, just because this is a structure we've had for years, is this the right community structure? Do we need less committees? Do we need more committees? Do we need different committees? And I appreciate your input.
I'll go first, yes. So I think they all deserve to be looked at. Go back to the charter, some of them, like, as I said, I'm on the finance committee now, and there's certain things that you are not supposed to be doing. I do it anyway, because what are they gonna do, throw me off? You know me, Dave, so I think, yeah, take a look at them. I think we need to look at actually all the documents too, so whether it's the bylaws and the CCNRs and all of that, but I think taking a hard look at the committee structure and reorganizing as necessary.
Okay.
Sorry.
Of course, the business practices need to be looked at, because we need to move away from the way we've been structured for a long time with our builder in charge of things. And we just perpetuated that now, but we're in charge of ourselves, so we need to move forward. And again, this is another great area where we can hear ideas from people. And we can also look at other communities to see what kind of committees they have and how they're organized, and try and put all that together into something, again, that suits us, the lifestyle we have and the lifestyle we want. And so there.
So we probably need to look at committee structure, but it's not gonna happen tomorrow. It's not gonna happen the day after we meet. So it's gonna take some time for the committee, the new board of directors to get together. And you hear a lot of unanimity up here, but there are 6 different personalities here. And when it comes down to individual stuff, we're gonna have to take some time. So don't expect change in June. That's my message to you. Because we're not even gonna know how to get along with each other by the end of June. So, yes, everything needs to be looked at. Committees, changes, restructuring, but not a lot of stuff needs to be changed in our, some things need to be changed in our governing documents. Those will take more longer. If we have to change governing documents to execute a strategy. But if we've got to come up with a strategy, we've got to put it out to you, and then we have to take input and figure out what the community wants to do. And not everybody's going to agree. And one of my philosophies is I got 1,900 folks. They look out the front door, they look out the back door. And what they see is most important. The job of the board is to do what's best for the association. So it's not going to happen overnight.
Okay, great question. You already have the answers. So, I like that. The advisory committee, we have been hijacked by the advisory committee. If you look at the charter for the advisory committee, it does not say that everything has to be brought to them. Also, if we had a good attorney, my opinion, they would have caught this contradiction and conflict before. The advisory committee is definitely in conflict with Article 14 of the Declaration. Article 14 is designed to allow you to have dispute resolution, where you can bring to that, whoever you have a dispute with, bring it through Article 14, and if it's something you don't like about the way the CCNRs have been enforced or whatever, it's allowed to do that, where you don't have to bring it to the advisory committee. I don't want to tell you, the advisory committee itself I brought something to the advisory committee twice, and they said, no, you don't bring it to me. I said, wait a minute, you told me, everybody's saying everything has to come to the advisory committee. Well, no, we're not gonna deal with that. Okay, so, okay, say it's, it's hit and miss proposition, but we've been hijacked by the advisory committee. Not the committee, but the way it's been functioning. And it's a gatekeeper, period, as you said. Nominating committee, I tried to be, I went to a building maintenance committee meeting right after the polls closed, and I said, with the intent of trying to help them, and the then current chairman asked me to help them become a member. And I said, okay, good, when are you gonna interview me? He said, I don't interview you. I don't even have anything to say about whether you're gonna be on the committee. That was into that. I mean, how can you have a committee chairman being responsible for the functioning of a committee when they can't even have a say in whether, in fact, the person that's gonna sit on the committee is acceptable to them or not? What a foreign concept. So, yes, we need to revamp and revisit the committee structure for sure. No question about it.
Again, my committee would be the nominating committee, because I know a lot of people that have gone to the nominating committee, and they were more than qualified to be in those committees. Yet the board, the nominating committee is like a good boys club. They know who they want, and they know who they don't want. And if you're one of the ones that's on that don't want class, forget it. You're not gonna go get it. I was walking by the library, and I saw Tim Brock there. And I said, Tim, what are you doing here? He said, well, I put in an application to go into the technology committee. No, I'm sorry, building and maintenance committee or something. And I asked him, I said, really? Yeah. Well, you wasted your time here, Tim, because right now I can tell you, you're going to be picked. And I told him, why? Because you've been to meetings where you have talked against the building maintenance committee of things that we're doing, and they already got you pegged as somebody that cannot be in the committee. I'm not thinking whatever your name is right now. Can't even think about it. Shelley. Shelley has been trying to get onto the
Wildlife Task Force.
Wildlife Task Force. And the committee, she's a vet, she's got experience, yet she never gets picked. And I know, the first time I heard Tim's name was when I think he applied for the Architectural Modification Committee. And then we started talking about it before we went to the committee, saying, no, you don't need that, you don't want that guy, because he's very radical, he's very this, he's very that, he'll never get anything done. And I said, who is this guy you're talking about? And then they told me, well, I said, I don't know, I can't vote against him, I don't know who he is. How can I vote against somebody I don't know? But that's how, and then when I saw the bingo, I said, hey, that's that guy. So the nominating committee, they know who they want before you even get there. So don't waste your time if you're not on the good cut list, because you will not get in. So that committee has to do it.
Thank you, Joe.
Remember, that was Joe that said that.
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Let's keep our answers in a kind way, and as we stated in the beginning.
I agree with you 100%. I do think the problem we have is in the nominating committee, and that's one of my points that I was going to bring up, that we do need to make some changes there, that they, if they're going to have the interviews, that the committee chair or vice chair is in the room with them, and then they can ask questions. The committee chair can do it. If we're going to deal with it and have to keep it from going forward, like Jim said, it's not going to be in July. We're not going to just do away with the committees. We got to have a plan going forward, how that works. So I do feel we do need to look at those and maybe some other ones and how to restructure. But it's going to take some time for the new boards to gel together, and government doesn't move real fast. And we got to get, if we're going to make changes to documents, that's another issue altogether. We just can't, as a board, say, okay, we're going to start with a new committee tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Jim.
I believe you, Rick, still had a question. Raise your hand earlier.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. We have great people that we've got sitting here. We know we're going to do better than what we've done in the past. and we need to get together, each one of us, and take part of that thing they call work. Okay? And I appreciate everybody that's here. I've had all kinds of training in my life through the military and through God and through everything else that we need who we have here now. And we will have a better tomorrow. Thank you.
This question right here.
I'm Nancy Cornelius. I live in the Mesas. Thank you all for doing this. This has really been so beneficial to all of us. There's been discussion that we would be better having a 7-board board of directors rather than 5. And I don't know if it's true, but I read that this current board made the decision to go to 5 board members instead of 7. I would like to know how each of you feel about that, and how do you go about changing it back from 5 to 7 if maybe the current board feels that that's a better way to go. And things, I mean, y'all have said that you want to do so many things. I think it's amazing. I think we all want that. That's a lot of work for 5 people. Would 7 be more manageable, be able to get more things done? Just like your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm for 7 board members. You know, before the whole residence board member came in, Pulte was in charge. And they had 3 members there. Pulte had 3 members from Pulte, and then we had 2 resident members. And Pulte would always override everything that was good for us, but bad for them. And a lot of things that we have here is because Pulte put them in there. They wrote the CCR, they wrote the bylaws, they did, they had the committee, but they changed from 7 to 5 because that way they only needed 3 votes to have anything passed. So when they did it or how they did it, I'm not sure, but when I got here, it was already 5 board members. But I heard that it was 7 board members before, and I think we can do a lot more work with 4 members that only need 4 votes, you know, instead of just 3 to have anything passed.
Yeah, I'm share your thoughts on that. I think it's a great idea. Sharing the load. We've gotten bigger. We're running it ourselves. We've got a lot of things we want to change, a lot of things to look at, and dividing the work between 5 people, that is a lot of work. And divided, if we had 7 people working together, I think the load would be carried more by the other individuals, and we can kind of get more stuff done. It doesn't take much to change that. It's just a board decision. And once all does, then take a big vote to make that happen. But anything we look at it, and I think as we go through the year and things are turning around, the board's getting respected. The board is respecting the residents, sharing their input. Maybe we'll have more people step up to do that. That's another thing I look at. We'd have to look at, we're electing 3 now, and I guess it'd be 4 in the next season. So we got a year to work on that. But it's a great idea.
Absolutely support 7 members. Right now we have 5, 2 of whom will answer your questions. So, and I'm one who asks questions constantly, and I asked too many questions, I guess, of one of them, and he said, I'm retired too, and I have a family too. So yeah, having 7 members to share the load is going to make a big difference for everyone. Hopefully you would be encouraged to ask questions at that point, because you'll get answers. All of us up here, there's not a lot that separates us right now. We're all willing to have that kind of communication with the community, because that's what makes it work. We're not smart enough to do it on our own. If I were lucky enough to be elected, I welcome your questions. I welcome you calling me. As I said on my flyer, I'm listening. Contact me now with any questions you have. Some people took advantage of that and turned out pretty well for everybody. So yeah, I think that the 2 remaining directors would welcome that also. I haven't asked them, but I do believe they would welcome 7 members, yes.
Yeah, Nancy, good question. I absolutely would support the 7. Right now, there's only the 5, and each of the board members have responsibilities to the 9 committees that are out there. So already you're taxing them. One of the committees, the architectural modification, meets twice a month. So you're asking them to attend the meetings for those committees, be able to report back to the rest of the board. So they're already kind of stressed from that, in addition to all the other things. So I would certainly support a 7-member board.
Yeah, any number sounds good. In this, as in any decision, I think it's where the board gets together and discusses it and talks about what are the pluses, what are the negatives, and make sure you understand those before you make a decision, not just head off that, hey, this sounds good, let's head for it. And I think, particularly for the 3 new members of the board, we're going to have to look at the 2 members who've been on there and have experiences for the last year. And they have an idea of what the workload is, where things should be going, and I think they'll have the biggest influence on which direction we go, whether we stay at 5, whether we go to 7, and how we do it.
So when Pulte had control of the board, the bylaws said that we could have up to 7 members. That was what was enforced when I bought my house in 2019. When the bylaws were changed to eliminate the developer, the advice that was given the board was 7 was not good, but 5 was better for operations. I want to know why. I want to know the arguments. I don't want to jump in and find out it's only 2 feet deep when it's really 12 feet deep. So at this point, I'm reserving my statement because I come from a town in Kansas that has 20,000 people. They have 5 commissioners. They have a staff. It's a big difference. So to me, it's a balance. We're going to increase our staff. Can we do it with more staff and fewer board members? I want to understand the arguments before I take a position. So I would say at this point, I'm agnostic. until I hear the arguments pro and con. So I'm kind of where Mike is.
Okay, we have time for one last question. I reserved that for me.
All right.
I've listened to a lot of things, and I guess the question that I want to try to propose is, it's about culture. I've listened to things being talked, being said, and I believe everything has a culture. Jim mentioned something about not being able to get anybody here. That's a culture thing. And it can be done through Facebook, it can be done through our portal, all the negative that our community brings out. And I've seen that.
Yes.
And seen where, somebody may not want to move their family or start a new job in a negative culture. But I also have seen the same thing when I moved here 4 years ago. I've only been here 4 years ago. The complaints that we have now are the complaints we had 4 years ago when we were getting ready to vote for a new board. So I started thinking that maybe we have a culture pattern. When I look at the things, and some of the things that I marked down was, we got a lot of people that have experience. We've got a lot of people that have qualification. We've got a lot of people that have knowledge, and I agree with all those. But am I seeing it being used in the committees, in the decisions, and the things that we decide to fix or not fix, or put off, or how long? The other thing, culture can also be spending money is not managing. We can throw money at you can fix anything with money. I think we're showing that right now with some things. But that doesn't mean that we've used our experience, our qualification, and our knowledge correctly. And, of course, as a group. So when I look at how things flow, and I've had the opportunity to sit in some things and meet with some contractors and observe some things. One of them is like the idea of an RFP as being a scope of work. I've seen some of those that is not a scope of work. And so when I look at that and say, well, that's a culture thing, that we just do an RFP and then we can't get any bids. From working with contractors, it's request for proposal. on whatever they're sending out. When I work with contractors, and time is money for them, and if they can't read a good scope of work, they're not gonna come in here and they're gonna bid it too high, they're not gonna bid it right. But if that's been our culture, that may be why we've lost a lot of contractors that's not willing to come and bid. And I'm all be glad to hear your comment. But when I look at things and say, we only had one or two show up, I think it has to do with procedures and processes. And there is a difference between procedures and processes. I can give my 2 cents on that. But anyway,
So Kenny, you're timing him?
my question,
it's a
accountability,
question.
responsibility, but the other thing is, how do you change the culture from, when I came here, everything was Pulte's fault. After Pulte left, it's, we can't do anything. Where does that culture come in at? Because we had a handoff, apparently. I've never heard the answers of who approved all that. Who said, hey, yeah, everything's good, because we had a lot of complaints before that. The next day we said, okay, now it's y'all's. And we started spending money. So how do you change that culture? I apologize for too long.
That's the question.
The culture, and how do we change it to get the processes functioning?
Jim's got.
Well, you need to have people that are going to spend time doing it, because it's not a part-time job. I run the common area committee, 2 meetings a month. We have a business meeting, we have a project meeting, but I worked about 30 hours a week doing common area. And that's looking at contractors, figure out what needs to be done next. But if you don't have a focal point, like you said, a business manager, somebody that where it's consistent, because every committee is different. Not every committee has somebody like me that's in contracting for my entire life. So we need to have consistent management processes, and we can't be changing every 2 years.
Yes.
Staff, committees, it's a lot of people come onto these committees that are accepted because they're the good old boy or they applied at the right time, but we've never had 7 people on the common area committee. In 2.5 years, we've never had 7 people. So it starts with the new board changing it, but we've got to figure out what the new, and we're not going to get it all done in the first day. You know, it's going to take a year. If we're better off in a year, then we've been successful. But if we're still answering the same complaints, we need to start over. So you got to rely on the new board to change that culture.
You lead from the front. If you're not happy with the job you have, don't be doing it. And we need a happy board, and that board needs to be out among the people showing how happy we are. And it needs to communicate to people all the good things that are happening here. But when something goes right, we need to let people know it went right. And when something goes wrong, we need to stand up and own it and fix it. And that then will transfuse into other people. And that's how you try to energize people and move forward.
I'm trying to still remember what exactly the question was, but it was kind of like, but that wasn't about like negative culture, and I think it, like Jim's saying, in life, it's going to be a slow process, right? It's not going to change overnight. I kind of go back, and when Joe was on the board the first time, and he would come and talk to us, some of us after a meeting, and he'd be like, I'm not supposed to be talking to you. What do you mean you're not supposed to be talking to me? The rest of the board didn't want me talking to you. So that foolishness of not engaging with the community, and I think that's the way we're going to be able to get better, is we have to engage with the community and value their input.
Cultural change starts with leadership. Until we have a president of the board who's willing to be the CEO of the organization, it's going to be very difficult to change the culture. I have, in my experience as a CEO, been change agent for the companies, and we moved 29 times because of it. Because I was a good change agent. But I was able to take the same staff, with a few exceptions, of the losing organization, and as a CEO, changing it into a profitable, well-oiled machine. It starts at the top. And one of the things that we've been missing here is a true CEO of the organization. Sure, you get elected as president of the board, got who? So what do you do with it? Nothing, quite honestly, that's my opinion. You don't act like a CEO. You need to act like a CEO. You need to be a CEO. You need to breathe being a CEO. That's the only way the culture is going to get changed. You have a leader. This organization is looking for leadership, folks. There's no question about it. And you put somebody out there who's a leader, you're going to respond to it pretty quickly. So, and the leader will take his or her cue from the membership. That's what I said. When I was a CEO, I should invite people, sit down with the CEO. Tell me what's right with my organization. Tell me what's wrong with my organization. That's the only way you're going to get cultural change.
To me, one of the biggest things is once the residents know that they're being listened to and that we care about what they say, I think that will help a lot with the culture change. Because right now, I've read the message board, and it's a second time that I said Board of Directors question and answers. I said they need to change that to Board of Directors questions, period. Because there were never any answers. So why do you put that there if there's not going to be any answers? But I tell you, if you all elect, whoever you elect at the front is going to be good. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. Whoever you elect is going to be good. Whether it's me, Jack, or Dennis, or Susan, or Mike, or John.
Jim.
Jim. Oh, sorry, John. Jim. But I think that it would be good for the community, for the residents to know that you are being listened to now, and we're taking you seriously.
I think if we live up to what we say we're going to do in that first board meeting, you have people asking questions and people getting answers. We're going to have a cultural change right there. Because it's been 2 years of no answers. That starts the process that respect is gained from the board. They're trying to do a good job and listen to what we want to do. That's the main thing that's going to happen. And then they get a notice that we're having a meeting next month. Can you believe that? And the same thing's going to happen then. So you start the same procedure every month that people know that they can come here, ask questions, not be belittled. Whether maybe it's a dumb question to somebody, but it's a question they have. And give them the respect that they earn. 4 years on the architectural committee helped many residents fill out their applications because they thought it was too complicated. And I didn't have to do that. Wasn't really my job, but I felt like if I could get the application done correctly the first time, it saved us a lot of time in the meetings. So I had no problem with that. And meeting once a month, this again, no problem. I met twice a month for 4 years. So one more meeting is not going to be a problem with me. Thank you, Chad.
All right, we're going to wrap this up now. We're going to start with the 1 minute summation of maybe what you want to say and communicate with the group that's here. We're going to start with ladies first. Pass it on.
Well, thank you everybody for spending your Friday evening with us tonight. So if you look at my resume, it says, who doesn't like a good glass of Chardonnay or Cabernet? I'm going home and having one after this. So just if all you can remember about me is ACT. That's accountability, communication, and tenacity. Those are the things I'm going to focus on, and I hope you consider me as a possible candidate for the board. Thanks.
All right. One of my principal issues is something that nobody covered here tonight. And all these questions were on the now. What about the next? Where do we want to be? The community's been around almost 20 years. Everything is the same as built. How many times have you heard people say they would like to have something else here? They would like to have a bigger building. They would like to have this, like to have that. How do we get there? We need a plan to get there. It costs money. We need to save money, but we need to have a plan. We need to have something to look forward to. If you have nothing to look forward to in life, your life is over. And we need to have our community looking forward to something. And that's what I want to try and do is spend some of our time. It can't be just today's problems. It's got to be tomorrow's issues and trying to move us forward and make us a better place to live.
I agree with Mike. We need to think about what's next, and that's what we try to do. What I've tried to do in the communities I've been on, because we inherited a 600 acres that was not maintained. And it's going to take another 2 or 3 years just to catch up. We tried to do that, doing streets program, doing drainage programs. Trees grow, trees got to be cut down. All of that costs money. So if your sole objective is to cut your assessment, this isn't going to do it, because everything we've talked about costs time and money. So, but the mission of the board is to provide the benefit to the community, and that's you folks, because you're all members of this association. So if we're not doing our job, you need to tell us, and we need to get an opportunity.
Oh, next. Well, I'm encouraged by your attendance and your questions. I entered this process thinking the community didn't really care, but you have proven me wrong, thankfully. Yeah, I'm kind of the odd man out in this group. I'm not a member of a committee, and I probably won't be a member of a committee. But the reason being, I took my time to deep dive into the rules, regulations, policies, procedures, so I really understood what needed to be done, why it needed to be done, and how it could be done. And I came up with 3 major issues I identified. Number 1 was the audit that Nancy and I participated in, and proved that the purchase order system is non-functioning. Number 2 was our status as a 55+ age-restricted community. The board did not have the policies and procedures necessary to defend that. So back in March of 24, I put a post out there saying, you need to develop your policies and procedures. This is self-fulfilling prophecy. That's it?
What was your third thing? What's the third one?
Third thing is how to hold Pulte accountable, Pulte and or CCMC accountable for the $1.5 million, whatever it is at this point. I have a way to do that. If you want us to help me spend my $500, it took.
Go on, be fair. Pass it on. Everybody else gets 30 more seconds. Come on. Talk out.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, but one thing I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm at the Oaks, okay? And I've been here for 4 years already, and I've seen a lot of change. And I want to go back to the way it was when I first got here 4 years ago, and it was beautiful. And with your help, with your vote, I plan to make it look like that was when we first got here, because we moved here because we wanted the leisure and activities thing that were going. There's no activities here going anymore. I want to get the lifestyle manager to start planning things that groups can do together, neighborhoods can do against neighborhood. You know, I know a lot of us are a little older and can participate in a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of things that we can do together as neighborhoods. That way we get to meet everybody together.
When I was thinking about getting on the board, I was kind of in the middle, and I went to the last board meeting. And then right there convinced me we had to do something. Because that was icing on the cake, the way it was handled. And so my big focus is communication, listening to people, getting ideas, and moving forward with those ideas. I want to be a way that people can communicate with me, and I can communicate with the board and make new ideas, and just turn the community around. We need to have a big change of attitude. I mean, we're getting beat to death with home sales because neighbors tell us how bad the community is and the board doesn't listen to you and all this. We need to change that philosophy. Thank you. You bet.
Okay, that concludes. Once again, we want to thank each of the candidates for taking time and making this worthwhile. But it's not worthwhile without the people that showed up. And again, we want to thank Carrie and the people that she worked with putting this together, and Jim. And we just want to say thank you. I think some of the candidates are willing to stick around, shake hands, and kiss babies if you have, and maybe answer some questions on their own. So.